All right. Hello and welcome to another Gritty Grind Basketball podcast. I'm your host, as always, David Sago, with my main man, Tom Arnold, here as
Hello.
usual. And an unfamiliar face, but a very welcome face here with us this evening. We have rapper and much more, Nick Brewer, with us.
How you doing?
Hey.
All good, all good. And yourself?
Yeah, good. Happy to be here. I mean, finding out you're a Lakers fan has put me a little bit on edge, but
I'll go easy.
no one I got a Knicks fan here also just
Yeah,
relaxes me, So I'm about neutral, once I kind of
there's a bit of
He's been
everything.
getting it for 9 years. Don't worry.
Yeah, yeah, we're longer than that.
But no, we'll treat you good. You're in good hands, Josh. You're in good hands.
appreciate that.
So I wanted to just start off with musical influences. Obviously, being a rapper, you've got a new project coming out.
Yeah.
You've had a few projects in the past, which I made sure I took the time to listen to. I actually
thank
heard of you back in, I think, 2018,
Okay.
when you put out the project with Fourth Quarter on it. And I heard that
Yeah. It's
that
called
single,
Sidelines. Yeah.
Sidelines is the one.
Okay, yeah.
Sidelines Part 1 is actually my favorite song of yours, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, okay.
But
Thank you, man. Okay.
but yeah, I heard of you then, and then obviously, looking at the track list and seeing that all of the songs were sort of basketball or sports related titles.
Yeah.
The content was different for the most part. So then it wasn't a surprise to me to then hear that actually you are a big fan of basketball, and I'm sure that went into influencing those song titles. But who sort of influenced you? How did you get into rap? What were your origins in the genre?
Yeah, so I grew up in East London. Just always loved music, from quite a musical family. My dad's, plays instruments, loves it, all that kind of stuff. So got onto it pretty young. So I was, grew up in the 90s. So like the Now CDs were like a huge part of the family sort of CD collection, I realized I was old when I got put on I had a song that went on to Now 92, and I'm like, wait, I can remember now 22, So
Yeah.
but I remember some of them early Nows had they'd have the hits Coolio songs and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and I loved them all, kind of growing up. But I think I had my older cousin who is also a basketball fan. He's a Heat fan, but we're talking music right now. He was about 5 years older than me, really into rap, kind of showed me about Nas and Wu-Tang Clan and Big L, and so mainly kind of East Coast, New York based lyrical rap music. And I just loved it. I always loved English at school, and I liked to write. I wasn't much of a talker growing up, but I loved words. So it just kind of resonated with me. And there was this website I used to go on, it was called the Original Hip Hop Lyric Archive, and basically it just had all the lyrics. So I just would print out Nas lyrics, and I just loved them. I don't know, I think it was like a language that I just understood, as cliche as that sounds. But so yeah, I really got into it through that. So my introduction was very much lyrical kind of rap music. And then kind of growing up in East London in the early 2000s, when I'm kind of starting my teenage years, and the likes of Wiley and Dizzy Rascal and Kano and all these kind of the whole grime thing starting was hugely influential to me. Very different obviously to kind of what I've been listening to, but I think what I loved about particularly the New York gritty kind of rap was just how authentic it felt. And I think I found that in a lot Dizzy Rascal, Wiley and Kano, and those three. And there's so many I could go on to mention, but yeah, just kind of all kind of impacted me. And I guess I've just tried to, just take little bits from different people. I'm very much from the UK, so I want kind of my music to represent that, but I've never seen myself as a straight kind of grime MC, if you know what I mean. Like just kind of taking in all those influences, and then just like a bunch of stuff really.
Yeah,
you've mentioned, I mean, so far you've mentioned a lot of lyricists, right? A lot of poem driven, I think you can say. I've listened to a couple of tracks today and yesterday, and there was a lot of almost soulful influences in music. Is that something you also were sort of brought up with?
Yeah, I think so. Like my dad, it's funny because my dad kind of was raised not far from where I was raised, and like obviously, so it's just interesting to see like 30 years previous, his influences. Like he grew up loving like the Rolling Stones and Deep Purple and all these kind of like big kind of like rock bands. But then as he grew kind of just older and his tastes changed, he really got into like Miles Davis and Eric Clapton and Wes Montgomery and all these kind of guys. And so I think I've always liked that stuff, and just kind of like, I guess some of the neo soul, kind of like your Jay Dillers. And I think I've always connected with music on an emotional level. If so, like either with what someone is saying or what a sound is making me feel, which I guess is probably common for a lot of people. But I think like feeling in music is just so important. And I'm not a producer myself, but you know, like, and I'm probably quite frustrating for producers to work with, because sometimes I'll just hear like a sound and it will make me feel something. And it's often those soulful kind of sounds, and that will sort of unlock the lyrics and it will kind of go from there. So yeah, definitely like that soulful kind of stuff is hugely influential to me.
That makes a lot of sense with how your sound has changed through the EPs that you put out, like going back to tracks like Jet Li. And you're collaborating with the Storms, you're collaborating with the Gets, and then through Sidelines to the new project, which I listened to. And it's, as Tom's pointed out, the music has gotten a lot more soulful, it's gotten a lot more introspective. And that's part of why I really liked that track, Sidelines Part 1, is because you talk about sort of things going on around you in the world, in life, and you just kind of watch them. Like they happen and you don't necessarily influence them, you don't do anything about them. And when I say you, I mean a person, anyone. We see these things happening, we know they happen. You might send a tweet about it, you might put an Instagram post up about it. But essentially, for the most part, most people just watch the world happen around them. And I just thought it was just something that was so relatable, to sort of flip the sports analogy into a real life situation. And I thought that was a really intelligent way to portray that message.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's like, that's been a lot of like, I think particularly like just in everything that's happened this year. And I think sometimes like there's just such a feeling of, well, it's a combination of things. Sometimes it's a feeling of like helplessness, just like of seeing everything, you know, like where, I think I even say in that song, like, where do I start? And it's just like, there's so much madness. And sometimes it can be overwhelming and it's just like a feeling of helplessness. And then sometimes, if I'm honest, it's like, I don't care enough. Do you know what I mean? Like I care more about myself. Like and it's kind of like those like that frustration. And it's always nice to chat with someone who you can tell has actually like listened and like dissected it in the way that I wanted it to be, because sometimes it feels like I obviously know what I mean by something and with the sidelines analogy and just that, but no, I really appreciate what you're saying, and just you know, to know that you kind of took it in the way that I was intending. So and I mean, it's just, no, I appreciate that.
Cool. So then, in terms of where your music has come from and where it's going, there's a very clear, very blatant emphasis on religion on the new project. It's called I Just Woke Up.
I woke up today.
I woke up today. Sorry.
No, all good.
I woke up today. And I mean, the title track in particular, speaks about like God's influence over you and what He's done for you. You've talked about your influences, and like obviously over the years it's become more and more acceptable for artists or rappers to speak about religion in their music and still have a mainstream audience. They're not pigeonholed as gospel just because they mentioned it. Going back to Kanye and Jesus Walks, and then obviously Stormzy with Prez and Gang Signs, which I think was heavily influenced by DMX and him putting just
DMX
prayers in his albums.
Lord, give me a sign. Like, DMX.
Yeah,
I love DMX. I mean, that's a visionary in so many ways.
For sure. And I just wondered how you felt about going down that direction with your music now.
It's a good question. It's weird. Like the first rap I ever wrote when I was like 9, which was terrible, as you could probably imagine, but it was a prayer, and it started from a point of fear and just asking God to help. And I think I've always I think there was often like a fear of being pigeonholed. Like my faith has always been a big part of my life, pretty much, since kind of the age of, I grew up in a Christian family, but and from a personal perspective, pretty much since I was about 16. And I think it was something that I've just struggled to kind of work out. I always felt like I don't want to preach at people. I don't want people to be made to feel uncomfortable, or not even uncomfortable, but like, well, this isn't for me, because in the same way where I might not listen to certain music from other cultures because I think, oh, well, if I'm not part of that culture, it's not for me. I might be closing myself off to something that I would really like, and I've just ignorantly thought, well, I'm not from here, or I don't subscribe to this way of thinking, therefore. And I think in many ways I just overthought it, and I've always kind of sprinkled it here and there, and I've done songs, and even on my EP Sidelines, I had a part which was kind of more kind of my thoughts, but it's been something that I've been trying to figure out. And I think now, just at the stage of life where I'm at, it just kind of felt like it was just something I really wanted to say. So the idea of the title, I Woke Up Today, I've always kind of struggled with just sleep in general, kind of just bouts of insomnia and just different things. And it's all is God really there? Do you know what I mean? A lot of those times in the dead of night, kind of just everything just seems a bit more extreme at those points to me. And often being if you were why can't I just sleep, whatever, but actually never really taking the time to just be grateful for the fact that I actually woke up. Do you know what I mean? And kind of waking up as in just being aware of that. And so it just kind of felt like a way to kind of share my story, hopefully in an introspective way. It's this is what I have experienced, this is how I view life, and this is who I believe God has been to me. And whether you agree, disagree, this is just kind of what I feel, and this is the music. Enjoy it. Hopefully, enjoy it regardless. So
because obviously I'm on the other end of the spectrum from you, because I'm a complete atheist, right?
Okay, cool.
But you've done something. So I was listening to it today and yesterday again. As I was saying, and the way the lyrics you use and the way you use your religion in your music and again your lyrics, it was sometimes it's again, I don't want to go too deep into religion, that can go into because it's I believe it's a very personal thing, right? It's something that it's
don't worry, you won't offend me. You don't need to.
I'm not trying to walk on eggshells there. What I'm saying is that it's something that's why I almost never discuss it with people. I only do it on Twitter because I do that. But I do respect people's beliefs, because I believe that if it does make you a better person, if it gets you to do things that kind of profit to everyone around you, makes you a better person, makes your family a better family, makes whatever it is you're trying to achieve, right, for the better. That's fine by me. You can talk about it, you can think about it, you can do whatever you want with it. That's absolutely cool. You know, there's many times when I walk around where I live, you've got the church's doors that would be completely open on a Sunday morning, and you have people like choirs and stuff, and I'd be like, you know, that's beautiful, that's awesome. You know, like there's a bunch of stuff from Kanye West, like especially when he started. He was there was a tour he did, I think it was back in 2004, 2005, I think, like early Kanye West stuff, when you first came to UK, when he had a band with him, a live orchestra, and he had a choir also, and like that, and I was like, oh wow, that's awesome, you know. But then I think Kanye went a bit too far now when it's extremely preachy, and that's where I'm like, that's where I draw the line. I'm like, nah, I don't mind you talking about it and singing, that's cool. I don't want you to preach at me. Like, I feel like you're coming at me with your stuff. But so going back to your latest EP, right? I was listening to that. I was like, actually, the way you talk about it, the way you address it, is like it sounds beautiful. And I was like, okay, he's completely connected with his beliefs. He's very comfortable, and I think it's cool. Like, again, being an atheist, I'm not, I don't like. And again, you know, Dave's point was like, oh, yeah, you kind of pigeonhole yourself. You know, you don't want to. Is it weird? And it's like, I don't think it should be. You know, I think it's completely fine. Again, I said that, but also within the same discussion with Kanye West, I'm like, no.
It's really interesting. But just out of interest, because I often feel like rap is a really interesting genre, because I kind of feel like everyone is preaching. Like, what they're preaching is kind of up for debate, but like, just it can. Well, I don't know. Maybe preaching.
It's not only in raps. Word. I think it's everyone's preaching. We all are to a certain extent. You know.
Yeah.
So I could be preachy about what I believe, but depends on the day, really. But, you know, it's really like, I can't be bothered. Like you said, like, I can't. Oh God, no, I can't today. But
it's
you know,
interesting, isn't it?
I agree with your point. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it is interesting just about like, what is it? And it might not, you know what I mean? But just thinking out loud, what is it that kind of makes it go over the mark, you know? Because I think even for myself, there would be certain things where it's like, right, that's too much for me, whatever it was, you know?
So I think,
like with Kanye, for example.
If it's something that when you're trying to understand where you came from and where you're going, and the heartbeat, well, not a heartbeat, I think the red, well, I'm just trying to use the right word. I think the backbone of your experience of your life is religion, and again, you're trying to make yourself, like, you're trying to understand life. I'm not going to say the meaning of life. It's a basketball podcast, I think. But you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to understand the world around you. You're trying to understand your role within society and what you want to become and who you are. And that's fine. Like, that's actually, I'm absolutely 100% cool with it. Like, it's your point of view, it's your experience. Like, I'm not here to say it's BS. I think where I'm sort of divided with Kanye West is just that his lyrics have become from Jesus Walk, where it's like, you know, this is who I am. If I sing this song on radio, I'm not gonna get, you know, I'm not gonna get any airtime. That's cool, you know, but I still talk about it. Okay, I was like, fair enough. It's a good point. You know, sure, probably you're trying to change that. That's great. But now, especially his latest album, I was like, I gave it a listen. I was tired by the end of it. I was like,
right,
you know, it's like it's. I feel like it's almost depending on, you know, if I go to church on a Sunday morning, and whoever's running the show, I like to call it, on the Sunday morning and talking about different things. If it's a good priest, for example, I've listened to a bunch of priests that were like really, really good and insightful, and had a different take on life and different takes from their experiences. Was that you know, you could almost convert me to a degree. I agree to you on like to an extent, you know, but you know, when you start coming at me with like, oh, if you don't do this, you'll burn in hell and stuff like that. It's like when you there's almost a, when you're trying to forcefully impose those your own personal beliefs, that's when I'm like, chill, like it's not how I want you to, do you know what I mean? That's why
I agree with you on that, by the way.
That's why I started my point with saying, oh, I actually I'm very okay, like it's your own personal beliefs, like
no, I respect that, man. That's really cool.
I think because that's where I draw the line as well. Like I agree that it doesn't matter what religion you follow, if it's, as Tom said, if it's making you a better person, or if it helps you get to where you want to be as a person, then it's good. It's good. I think that's why they call it faith, right? I think faith rather than religion is a much better term for the spiritual experience that religion brings you. And then in terms of forcing it on other people, I think weirdly enough, Kim Kardashian had a great quote where she told Kanye, I get that this is your journey, but that's your journey. I don't have to be on your journey, when he was trying to force his religion.
He can't drag her along. It has to be.
No, he's changed path while he's with her, but that doesn't mean that she has to go with him, and she's doing her own thing. And that's just how it needs to be sometimes. But you mentioned your feelings in the dead of the night. I'm a night owl, so that's when I do my best thinking, my best working, my best creating. And I actually have those weird thoughts in the morning when I wake up, right?
Interesting.
So like as far as mental health goes, I tend to struggle in the morning. So like getting up early is like one of the worst things for me, and I really have to mentally prepare myself to do it. I don't know if Tom wants to ask the more pertinent question, but you did some work with was it Anxiety?
So I'm an ambassador for Anxiety UK. So I was asked by BBC 1Xtra a few years ago to write a poem. They asked, are you interested in writing a poem about mental health and how it affects young people? We're doing an event, like a radio event. So I was like, yeah, sure. And then I was like, how does mental health affect young? Like, where do I start, kind of thing? So I was like, well, let me start with how it's affected me. And like I mentioned briefly, growing up, I was very quiet. I didn't say nothing. Really, I was extremely, extremely anxious, and it made school and just general life quite difficult. And I like part of my process was the talking about it. How I was feeling came first from the writing about how I was feeling. So it was a process. Like I say, my faith helped a lot, and just being able to express and speak and just share it, because I was completely like consumed by this anxiety, and some of the main feelings in my mind were, Nick, you're crazy, like you can't, like you're actually weird, you know. And it was particularly like a boy thing, in a sense of like, I'm a 14-year-old boy, and it's like none of the boys at school seem to be worrying, like they're all just cool, do you know what I mean? Like, and there was a lot of those thoughts going around. And slowly, as I started being able to share with, you know, like profession, like, you know, mentors and just different accounts, it was like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one that feels like this. And it's been a long process, and I still get anxious, but it's like, I think the real difference is it doesn't, like, for the most part, it doesn't control my decisions. And for a long time, it would therefore be like, well, no, not going to do that, not going to do this and that. And it's something I'm really passionate about. So I set up an organization called Talk About It, which is the name of the original poem that I wrote. And so I deliver workshops in schools to young people around what mental health is, what common mental health problems look like, and how creative writing can be a way in which we just start to kind of express ourselves, because that's what it was for me. So it's something that I really feel passionate about.
It's always interesting that it's seems to be, I don't know if it's mainly a boys thing, so especially around that age, like you mentioned, 14, 15 years old. It's like um I do it's kind of, I'm trying to remember back in the days when I was 15, but I don't actually remember a period of that time, like teenage years, where you I'd be having a bad time, like there was never very much deep conversations with my friends around that age about things. But again, I don't know, I think to me it came around later in life. I think when I moved to the UK is when I started having like difficulties, and you're away from the family and all that stuff. And funny enough, it's that's when you realize, talking about, because I think I came to the same conclusion than you, when you're like, something's wrong with you, where am I the only one who's thinking that way? And then we start talking about it with people and start actually being honest with everyone. People, especially with mental health, something I've really discovered in the last couple of years, where when you're forthcoming and open in that discussion, a lot of people in turn will do the same. And it's amazing how suddenly you go, well, okay, I'm not the odd one out. I'm actually, it's extremely common. It's I would say everyone suffers from it to a certain degree. And so that's why I think what you do in working with, going to schools and talking to teenage kids. What do you do? Like do you do secondary schools? And
so like I think I feel very passionate about, I do it at secondary schools. I feel very passionate about like working with that kind of year 5, year 6, so that kind of 9, 10, 11 age, because I feel like that's when things, you start to get like a bit of an understanding of like life, but you still have like so much kind of to work out. And also and like, not to try and build it up, because life is challenging, and it gets more challenging as the older you get, but for some kids, like that year 6 to year 7, like that move from the primary to the secondary school can be like, I remember like when I joined my school and there's like 2,000 kids, and I'm like the smallest one there, it seems like, and like, and it's like, wait, this place, so just huge. I don't know, I always just kind of feel like, if not to say that, oh, write about it, you'll be fine, but it's like, if I can start to help to maybe like help these young people have a bit of a toolkit, a bit of a creative toolkit to be able to draw from, even if it's just, it could be art, it could be whatever, but just getting them to just, because what you realize, you kind of like mentioned it yourself, Tom, you don't remember maybe having like deep conversations at 14, 15, and like, do you remember really ever thinking like, how am I? Like, do you know what I mean? It's not really a question like a 14 or a 15-year-old really like asks themselves. And sometimes just taking that moment to be like, am I thinking anything? Am I feeling anything? And it might be like, no, I'm good. I just want to play Call of Duty. I don't know. Or it could be, actually, I kind of feel lonely. Or, do you know what I mean? I worry about this or that. So I think it's just giving like young people an opportunity to express where they're at, and it could be
I think a lot of it is down to their age and the capacity. I mean, you might not be able to express what you going through, right? Because for example, my daughter is 11 years old, so she just started secondary school this year. And I know last year year 6 was a bit weird, because it's like, well, you had half a year and then bang, lockdown.
Nice.
So that messed the whole thing up, right? But like year 5, year 6 is like, there's this sort of switch in personality. There's a change in personality that happens over those 2 years, and I think it's going from being a child to preteen, when it's like, well, a whole bunch of emotions being thrown at you as a parent. But it's we always trying to be as honest with her about what's going to happen, like in the next couple of years you're likely to go through this, and you might because there's that, for example, something very concrete, like the age of 7, 8 years old, you think your friends, your friends at school are going to be your friends forever, and they were like, well, yeah, sure. Like I still know one person from from when back when I was 6. I was like, well, you're not, you're not likely not going to be friends with them for in the next 5-6 years, but it's fine. So trying to get her to be prepared for that, because I know that's also something that can hit you when you're a kid. Changes, lots of changes.
And I think like something I feel aware of is like I don't want to be going into primary schools or secondary schools for that matter and being like, the kids have been fine, and then suddenly I'm like, right, let's talk about anxiety, let's talk about depression, and then suddenly it's like, wait, am I anxious? It's not about like scaring, but it's about, do you know what I mean, presenting it in a way of like, if you've like, it's all good, you're a human being, and if you don't, it's all good. But it's just, I guess that like I'm not a parent, so it's interesting to hear like from the perspective of you as a parent. It must be like a real interesting challenge of like wanting to make sure your daughter is aware and is prepared, but not wanting to like expose her to things that she doesn't need to, like, it must be a challenge.
It's like telling them that Santa is not real. It's like, when did you do it? So how do you do it?
Wait, what do you mean Santa's not real?
This is where we end it.
So going from there, using writing as a coping mechanism, like you said, you can use art. We had a special on mental health a couple of years ago where I was talking about using basketball to help me through it at the time. And when my dad got sick with Parkinson's disease, and one of the reasons that we like basketball is we can go there and either as a fan or when we're playing as a player, sort of lose ourselves in it. So on that note, I did want to ask you how you got into basketball, got into the NBA, and eventually chose the Clippers. Great choice, by the way. Great choice.
It's interesting, but just I will answer your question, but it's just one thing that I found. No, let me go into it because you make a good point about just how basketball has helped play a part in with your mental health, and just one thing I just loved. So I grew up, I liked football, English football. That's kind of been for the majority of my life the only sport that I really followed. I always really loved to play basketball. Like that was always the sport and still, I mean, I'm not like very good, but I love playing it. And when I was at school, I was all right, But yeah, I'd only ever followed football, and I was just getting like a bit bored. And then it was the 2000, like, so I'd liked basketball growing up. NBA, I'd just followed here and there, not really ever like properly. And then, but it was the 2011 12 season, which was the lockout season. So it started a little bit later, and it kicked off on Christmas Day. And I remember I was with like a few friends in the evening, and we watched, I think it was Lakers Bulls. And that was like Derrick Rose was the MVP of the previous season. And like, I'd heard of Derrick Rose, and, so I watched that, and I found it so enjoyable. And then, so from then I kind of followed, and, I remember, I loved, like, there were certain players, like at the time there was Ronnie Brewer. So I had like I had an.
He was at the Jazz, right?
He played for the Knicks for a while, actually. I think
I know,
he was at the Bull. Yeah.
He was everywhere. He's been on every single team.
Yeah, he was a journeyman. But like obviously, along with the Ronnie Brewers, I thought Carmelo was super cool. Just started to like follow different players. Hadn't really like had a team affiliation, and I was kind of enjoying because being a West Ham fan. Again, I was like, right, I'm not gonna rush, And it was also like, I don't have a connection. The only place I've been to in America was New York. I love New York as a place, but I was like, I'm just going to enjoy the sport. And a lot of my friends just followed players and this, that, and the rest. And then I remember, I think Damian Lillard came into the league the following season, and I was just like, this guy's unreal. Got more and more into it. And then I started traveling to America quite often around like 2014, 2015 for kind of music and personal reasons. And I was going to LA a lot. And I always knew one team I knew I was never going to follow was the Lakers, because it was like, it just felt so cliche. It felt like, for me, it felt like being like a flipping, I don't know, like a Man United
supporter.
you know,
who would do that?
Oh, don't oh my God. I know what kind of guy you are, but but it was just like, no, I'm not, because everyone knows who like Kobe Bryant is, but like I didn't want to be. I just felt like I didn't want to be one of them guys. So in a moment of real wisdom, I was like, well, the Clippers are kind of cool. And remember, this is 2014, 2015. Like the Clippers were good by this point. They had they hadn't won anything. But Lob City, you know, you had the big three. Blake Griffin was still in his physical prime and was just something to behold. Chris Paul, and then even just like JJ Redick, Jamal Crawford. It was like it was a good team. And so I started going to games whenever I'd kind of go to LA. And yeah, I just thought like I'm gonna go all in, heartbreak that playoff season. We lost to the Rockets, and yeah, and then but I just really got into it. But to go back to your point about mental health, like one thing I love about NBA in comparison to like just English football, and like there's just so much to like get involved in, you know, like I listen to so many podcasts, and like, I mean, there's so many different like chat shows, and the players are like personalities, and you know, it was just so much. I love the game and I love watching the game, but I just loved all the other parts of it, which were just so fun, you know, and there was just so much to like keep my mind occupied, you know, and so it's just like, yeah, I just loved it. And then obviously didn't really Clippers, you know, underachieved, kind of, you know, few big trades. Then we've been like we were a cool like underdog team with you know, with Pat Bev and Lou Williams, and then suddenly, and that was really fun because it was like, whoa, we took the Warriors 6, you know, like no one was gonna. And then suddenly I remember I was away for my birthday. My birthday is in July, and I was away, and one of my best friends is the Golden State Warriors fan. So he's also a Man United fan, but that's a different, you know. But
younger than me, that's why.
But he's obviously been living life as a Warriors fan, and like the Warriors are hard to hate for me because pre Kevin Durant anyway, because like they play basketball. They were play basketball right, you know. They drafted well. They have a great system. They're fun to watch. So, and you know, but I remember he texted me. I was away for my birthday. I was in Toulouse randomly. It was great, but we were like, and I got and I got a text. He was like, "You guys got Paul George and Kawhi," and I was like, "Wait, what?" And then I kind of had a look, and straight away I was like, I don't know how I feel about this because I really, really like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The rest I couldn't have cared less for, you know. But I was just like, obviously it's huge, and we had to do it. Like as a franchise, you have to make those moves. But then it was just like, cool. Now we're the team to beat, and we became a team that was beaten. So sorry, I've gone on a long, a long spiel, but yeah.
Yeah,
say from that what you will.
That's past the present. Yeah, that's past the present. Yeah, it's interesting that you say you didn't know how to feel about it, because that's often like what happens. Like even with what the Lakers did, trading their young players for Anthony Davis, like you grow an affinity for these players, especially when it's young players that have been drafted by your team, and then they go, and you wonder if even in victory, if there's something cheap about it. Because
so for you as a Lakers fan, was there a particular player like in the AD trade where you was like, or was it just all of the young players? Like, Was there a particular player that you were sad to see go?
Because it was so drawn out, like you had time to prepare yourself. It wasn't like with you guys where literally it was announced and the trade was being done and that was it. Like it's over, they're gone. There was the whole like AD wants to be traded, and then the whole I'm only going to LA, and then you know the multiple stories that were leaked about the deals and stuff. But I'm a Ingram fan. I was sad to see him go because I did think that he would come good. And yeah, I did like Lonzo Ball, but like I had a bit less of an affinity for him. Just he wasn't here as long. But yeah, that definitely happens. And now like I pay attention to New Orleans games as well. I do want to see them do well.
Yeah, it's like when Shai, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like I just really liked watching him play, you know, and that was the thing I really liked. Even though we weren't like a great like free flowing team, like Lou Williams would just have these amazing like 50-point games every now and then, and you know, like we had a style, and then it kind of felt like we've just been going through the motions all season. And I love Kawhi, like I do love Kawhi as a player. And I feel Paul George gets a bad rap, man, because like I feel like he's had some serious injuries, you know. He's had some serious injuries. And like obviously the playoff P things come to like really really sort of bite him. And I'm not making excuses for him, but I don't know. It's
the funny thing about it all is it could have been so different without the bubble. Like, if you think about all that happened, even just in the NBA, in the 3 months they were in the bubble, like it was like a whole season's worth of drama and events and highs and lows, and you could write like a very thick book about just the bubble alone. And even like people that are big on stats and big on analytics, they're trying to, I think, who was it? I think one of the guys at The Athletic, or three of them got together and wrote like a rankings of players. And they were joking about it on a podcast today, saying that it might all mean nothing because like it won't apply to normal basketball outside of the bubble. We have no idea if what happened would have happened anyway, right? Like we could say that the Clippers didn't have chemistry, right? Or they didn't play enough together. And that's all cool. But given they would have had another few months at the end of the regular season and then the playoffs to build it, would it have been so different? Was Paul George's performance just down to the fact that he had to be in this bubble and not around his family, as he would have been, right? Was Jamal Murray the opposite? Does he turn into Superman when you put him in an isolated environment, right? Like, we won't know until we get back to normal and see what stays the same and what changes.
Yeah, I think being in the bubble for the Clippers was sort of the dagger in the season. So to some extent, you know, it came out now that nobody really got along on that team, right? You know, I think the rest of the team was a bit slightly annoyed with the preferential treatment the big two got all season long. So I think once you're in the NBA season bubble, let's use that again, you know, regular bubble, and you train now, and you know you got 2 training sessions now and then, and you've got a bunch of games coming at you, so you don't really think about those things, and you're trying to perform as best as you can. Sometimes you can pull it off. You don't have to like your teammate to do well. But I think because they had a break and maybe overthought about everything, you know, maybe they that got into their heads, collective heads, and then went back and being, you know, into sharing their personal space with each other, and maybe probably not liking that much. You know, it translated onto the court, and it went the wrong way. You know, so some teams are able to draw bad feelings towards, you know, teammates and translate that into a win and, you know, kind of draw on that. But then I think they completely imploded, and that was funny for you, Dave, I think, to witness.
Wow.
Look at that space. Yes, seriously. But certainly it was at times, to me, it was odd. It was just weird to witness. Like a player that the quality of Paul George hitting the freaking sideboard on a three, you know. Do you remember that shot? That
he's a great 3-point shooter. Like like take away everything. He's a good, like, he's a very good 3-point shooter. So it's like would
he finish like third in the MVP votes like a couple of seasons back? It was his second or third.
It was literally like the season before.
It's like how does a player from that quality goes from, you know, being third or second out there?
Two shoulder surgeries is part of it, all right.
This is it. and this is just what I think is just crazy about sport. It's like, you know, sometimes I can be guilty, and a lot of people can be guilty of, like, well, these almost like viewing them like robots, in the sense of, like, you're on the court, you know, deliver, and it's not making excuses, because at the end of the day, the Clippers didn't deliver, and we threw away a 3-1 lead. But yeah, I mean, from the physical aspect to just like you say, like being in this isolated bubble. I mean, but at the same time, I wouldn't play down the significance of the ring. You know, like, how do you view it, Dave, as a Lakers fan? Is there an asterisk?
Don't go there.
Because I wouldn't. I'd say, like, it's a bona fide. You know, this is a real.
It is. And if anything, from these reports that are coming out about these teams and the way the players felt being in the bubble, if anything, you could argue it was harder, right? Because you had to go through things that no team has had to go through before. And like you say, we do tend to view sports people as just robots that play sports, just like they're in our PlayStations and Xboxes. When they're not, they're people. And the mental side of things, being away from your family, like they say that. They'll say, oh, we're away from our families. And you think, okay, you're away from your families. Like, people do that all the time. But then when you hear more about what they're actually doing when they're not playing, the more you start to realize that actually, oh, this, like, it was trash being in there. It was trash. Like, it can be as nice as it can be in there. But when you hear stories of, like, Dwight Howard reading storybooks to his kids through a Zoom chat, then you're like, oh, like, on a normal day, they would go home and play with their kids, like, and their kids would run at them and be like, daddy, daddy, daddy. And, you know, they'd have all of those interactions. And like, being away from them for that period of time. And then some of them came into the bubble, some of them didn't. It must have been really, really hard emotionally. So I no, there's definitely no asterisk, because at the end of the day, everyone's in the same situation.
No,
you have to beat what's in front of you.
I don't really agree with that, with the argument that's being put out everywhere that it's like there should be an asterisk to that title, because it's like, what? No, everybody is, you're all on, you know, the same. You know what the conditions are. You know how it's going to be. You know, you all started the season. You all said okay to finishing it. It's fine. Actually, I had a question for Nick.
No, I agree.
Because what Dave said about being a robot, right? Because you obviously, being an artist, you'd often go on tour, right? You'll go and being away for a while. Because I had a discussion with my dad a couple of years back when we're talking about football and about how, you know, how performance is not only football, sports in general, like how your performance would, you know, 1 week you'll be absolutely on fire. You know, you score 3 against whoever, and then next goal, you know, 3 days later you play against another team and you're just a ghost, right? And again, I've my whole life tried to explain to him, it's like, well, they're still people. Yeah, they're professional. They are supposed to, allegedly, the best of the best at what they do, or part of the top, whatever it is. So this kind of question I always wanted to ask a musician or an artist is that, so let's say you go on tour and you're going to be away for say you do a big one, you're gone for like 2 or 3 months maybe, or maybe correct me, maybe it's longer than that, maybe it's shorter, depending on what the schedule is, right?
Yeah.
Surely there are nights where you're like, can't be asked to do this, or
oh mate, I mean, yeah, for me, I've never even been on a tour that long, like, but I've done like I don't know, like 12, 13, and it's different in the sense of there's more. I feel like a musician, like an artist, has more control in the sense of like, I can go on stage and know what my set is, and barring a technical difficulty, I can deliver that set, you know. But I find touring quite difficult, to be honest. I love traveling, but I hate traveling because like it if that makes any sense. I love it and I hate it at the same time, because it's just, you don't really get to like see anywhere, and it's sound check, it's probably grabbing whatever you can eat, you know. And for me, I'm very much like, my mood can very much be altered if I'm not eating properly and sleeping properly. And yeah, it's hard. And then sometimes like, oh man, like I remember like I supported the game, and it was in like Manchester, and there was just one guy, like it was like 4,000 people, but there was just like one guy who's just at the front, and he was just like screaming abuse at me the whole time. And it's like, I'm trying to do it, and like, you know, it's like you pick out them things, and it's like, it can really affect you. And I was just like, well, that's just one person I could see. And it's like, imagine, I don't know, I couldn't imagine what it'd be like to be a player, like a basketball player, like that. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, it doesn't go right for you at whatever moment, and having a crowd on your back, and like, I've had crowds on my back before, and like, and it's not particularly nice, but like, I still feel like I'm in control. I can cut it short, but it's hard. Like, I really do think it's enjoyable, and it's like I see it as a blessing. You know, I've been able to see some really random, beautiful places that I wouldn't have, and it's, you know, for the most part, people are like so respectful, and so just like it's just a great experience. But I think, aside from my lack of like ability in any sport, I think I'd find the traveling aspect like really, really difficult. I don't think that it can't be played down.
No, that's why I was kind of push on, like, you know, what Dave on previous podcasts, especially with Aaron, when we talk stats and stuff like that, and like, you know, I was sort of, my point is, stats don't mean anything, or to a certain extent they're not entirely, you know, they don't tell the whole picture, right? It's only part of it. That's why I don't agree that much with analytics and all that stuff. You know, I think there's only so much you can read into it with, you know, there's only so much you can push your team using just that tool, right? So that's why I was kind of think the greatest managers of the last few years, right? They're the ones that kind of are able to put players together and get them to get along and play together, and subscribe to the idea of a team, and or the greater good, and, you know, the greater purpose of what you're trying to achieve. So that's why I find it interesting, that especially with mental health, it's trying to get your guys to keep happy and not get into that robotic kind of mindset where it's like that's something that kind of sort of fascinate me with, not only with sport, but like, that's why I ask you the question, Nick, is like, I've done my fair share of concerts, and like, you know, when you're a musician, like, imagine you're in a massive band also, you know, it can be from like you're by yourself on stage, or you have a DJ with you, or it can be also a huge band. It's like, you know, after you've done like a huge tour and you're gone, and you're on your 20th concert, like, surely you must be like, I don't even know why
voice,
I am. Like,
voice is knackered, tired, sleeping in cheap hotels, like, if they're even hotels, you know, a lot of just like, it's so fun at the same time. So it's quite like a weird thing, because it's like, but usually I've always found like around day 6 or like that, you get the cold. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're starting to feel a bit run down, and
you miss your bed.
Yeah, you miss your bed and just all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's yeah, I like I don't personally don't think I could have done the bubble. Like, you know, I don't think I could have just like locked, and I say locked away. I know they're on like they're at Disney World, but it doesn't matter. You know, it's yeah, I would have found it challenging.
Where they were and like in the conditions they were in, I don't think really mattered that much. You know, it's like because you know you're locked away for a while. You know, like what you said, Dave, about Dwight not being able to go home, because it's like if you give people a certain, you say, okay, from that day to that day, so you're going to be away for 35 days. You know you're coming back, but like with especially with bigger teams that had deeper playoff expectations, right? It's like, well, I might be home next week. I might be home in 2 weeks. I might be home in 3. And that's mentally where I think probably the worst, because it's very akin to
you're just gonna throw the ball at the sideboard and just get out there.
Is that what you think happened? Is that what you think happened?
Yeah. It was all part of the plan. It was all part of the plan.
To be fair, the Knicks
can win the chip next year, man.
The Knicks did the same thing.
It wasn't championship or bust, man. Yeah, the Knicks were smart. They were like, nah, we don't want to get involved.
We don't want to be part of this. We miss out. We got great kids. We don't want to be. Nah, we don't want none of it. Smart. Okay. Smart.
Yeah, but it's rough, and yeah, like you say, the situation we're living in, we've come back and forth from this topic over and over again. I had my little niece coming to my house for the first time, and she's like she's more than 1 year old. Like it's weird for her to be having this experience now, when she's already walking and starting to talk and things like that. Whereas that would have never been the case with like her older brother, who was here every week for the longest. And with like the pandemic and stuff, I know it disrupted us and our small little tiny podcast. But the entertainment business, the music industry has been affected a huge amount, as sports were. Has been affected a huge amount and continue to be. How have you found trying to, like, now you're trying to put out a new EP in these current conditions? Obviously the music can still go out. You're not relying on people going to the stores like you would have been 15 years ago. But how has it been like not having the festival scene throughout summer and not having those kinds of shows and build-up shows and promotions and things like that to supplement the release?
It was funny because I remember like at the beginning, you know, chatting to all my rap mates and seeing stuff on social media. It was like, yeah, just gonna like write so many lyrics and, you know, gonna make so much music. Like, and then you realize, oh, it's not necessarily like just time that I need. And I remember I'd sit down each day and couldn't write, like nothing was coming. And, you know, you just realize, oh, like I could sit here for 10 hours and that's not a guarantee that there's going to be like fruit from this labor. So that was tough. And a lot of shows were cancelled. And you just kind of realize, I kind of realized just how much it's like music is about call and response in like the simplest form, in a sense of it's really hard to gauge things without getting some reaction. And I think especially with this EP, I Woke Up Today, like I had all these ideas of like, you know, like do like little midnight Q&A sessions at different places and really kind of playing on that stuff. And then it's like, cool, no one can go anywhere and you can only have 6. And so that kind of stuff is frustrating. And kind of just seeing how much music has been put out just by everybody and can be a bit overwhelming. But I'm just a person that I feel like I don't like to wait for something that I don't know how long I'm going to wait for. Kind of like, well, let's wait till this is all sorted. And then what if it's not sorted? So I feel good about releasing the EP, just in the sense of this represents where I am at now and like where I have been at. And therefore I want it to be heard at this time. And I trust that you know, if and when it's listened to and taken in, like whenever things can happen and I can do the shows and that stuff, it will be cool. And I've just realized, like, it's a good like, these are good problems to have. And I think the work, like, this year has definitely shown me, like, not to downplay like my own challenges and struggles, because your life is your life, but just realizing, you know, these are good problems and there's like serious stuff going on. And yeah, like, it will figure, from my perspective, things will figure itself out. But it is frustrating.
Did you ever think at some point, so there's a couple of bands I follow and I really love that were supposed to put out music pretty much when the lockdown started, and their reaction to it was, well, people have other issues to, you know, deal with, rather than having us release music and kind of shining the light on us, right? But you know, I think my sort of reaction was like, well, actually, you know what, now is a perfect time, because actually, yeah, things are dark. You know, you might want some sort of distraction, so your music is welcome, you know. And it's like, I think I like what you said about you know, just do it now, you never know. Like when you say, you know, one of the band was like, okay, well, we'll wait until this, it'll, you know, kind of quietly goes away. And I'm like, well, it must be, you know, it might be living with this for the next couple of years, so might as well just, you know, bite the bullet, release it now.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think like music in general, and like part of the reason why I like rap music, I always feel like good rap music is really like on the mark of like what's going on, and really like paints a picture in a different way. And I think I understand the approach in a way, but it's like, I know, like, if I held on to this music, like, I'll wait till next year. I wouldn't want to put it out next year because it will whatever. And it's like, no, this represents now for me. So let me do that. But yeah, it from a business perspective, it's like, it's a tough one because things move so quickly in the music industry, you know. And now, once an album's been out for like 6 months, it's basically like ancient, you know, which is quite frustrating. But it's just the way. It's just the way that music is consumed now.
Which is like Drake. Every time you blink and there's a new Drake album dropping. And
exactly.
I'm lost now. I don't know what he's done.
Which
is confusing me. Drake is like to me is the face of the new music, like the music industry as it is
for
right
real.
Now. It's like
for real.
Hey, it's a new joint, and like 2 weeks later, it's like, wait, he's got a new album again. It's like, you know, calm down.
And that's the thing, and it's so represent. Like, that's the thing, and he's like, arguably, well, he's easily one of the biggest artists in the world, and that's what he feels needs to be done. So, and it's just like, things move fast. And
I think you mentioned Michael Jackson in an interview saying that he used to release every 6 years or something.
That's the thing. Yeah, like you know,
think about it now, it's mental.
Imagine going away for like 6 years. It's like, there's even, you know, even the Beyonces, the Adele's probably like push it the most, but it's nowhere near as long, you know. Like, if Adele's gone 3 years, she's Adele, so it's different. But but at the same time, she can't take 6, you know. She can't. So it's.
I mean, I guess it must be linked to also the use of social media, right? When you've got to be constantly in the Twitter feeds, right? You've got to be, your name's got to be in there if you want to stay relevant. Because now it's there's what I would assume. Well, actually, there's a lot more music available freely everywhere. So the way we consume it is different, also. But the way it's being kind of dropped on everyone. You know, you don't have to go through a label these days to, you know, become someone.
You just put it straight up,
So
it is like, I guess the world's going that way. Like, it's so great that everything is so accessible, but it also just inadvertently devalues it. And that's from music to film to like books, like whatever it is. So, you know, it's just a balancing act, I suppose.
Indeed.
So I just wanted to touch on 2 things before you go. First up, bringing it back to basketball. Clippers Clippers outlook for next season. They're in the market for a point guard.
Oh, we've got a point guard.
Kawhi whispered that they need a point guard. What do you think's gonna happen with the next season, which might even start in December? I think it's crazy.
I read Christmas Day. Maybe is that like?
Yeah.
Well, December 22nd, so that they can do the ring ceremonies and everything like that, and get that out of the way, and then have Christmas Day game with the Lakers opening the season and then featuring.
Lakers, always.
I'll be honest. I learned a lot about basketball this year, man. Like LeBron is just so good, and I obviously knew how good LeBron was, but I do think the bubble really just highlighted how just strong a person LeBron is, and just how much of a leader he really, really is. We need a point guard for sure, but we need a leader. And, I thought, like the way our team was constructed, I thought when we got Reggie Jackson, I was like, cool. Now we've got like a ball handler. We've got Pat Bev, who's obviously like a bit of an anomaly at point guard. But so if my wish list, I don't think it's gonna happen. But like if we could get Drew Holiday, oh my gosh! Like for me, I can't see how that would work. I could see the Pelicans thinking, let's cash in on Holiday, just in terms of where they're at as a team. But I don't know. Yeah, we need a point guard, but we need a leader, and it looks like Kawhi is not. And it's just so interesting seeing how perfect the Raptors were for Kawhi for that season. And just how important.
Yeah.
Like it's so like how hindsight's just like how key a role the Kyle Lowry, and just played. So I'm very, very, very apprehensive because Paul George came out and did this whole this season wasn't championship or bust, and it's like, all right, cool. Well, if that season wasn't, then this upcoming season is. So
right, right,
So, and I don't think it's going to get any easier because I think the Warriors will be back in. The Lakers, Portland.
Yeah.
The Lakers look good. I can't see the Rockets like keeping pace. I don't see where the Rockets go now as a team, but I think it's going to be difficult.
Were they ever in it?
Well, when you think about when you think about like how far they pushed the Warriors a couple of seasons, it's kind of crazy, man.
Yeah.
But so I think it's going to be. I'm very apprehensive. It's all well and good saying we need a point guard. Do we go for Rondo? Like
been mentioned.
I can't see how we're going to be able to get. I'd love Rondo, by the way. I've always been a big fan of Rondo, ever since I've followed basketball. But I'm scared. I'm
okay.
apprehensive. I'm apprehensive for sure.
Yeah, you got Lawrence Frank up there, Executive of the Year.
Sure.
I'm sure he'll figure something out.
I also like who we're bringing in on the coaching staff. I was just reading today, we brought in Kenny Atkinson. And I've forgotten his name, but we've also managed to pry away I think it was the Heat assistant coach. I can't remember his name, but he's been at the Heat for like 18 years. But that's what happens when you have like the richest owner in the NBA and there's no salary cap on the on the coaching staff. But I mean, we got to have that chemistry. That it looks like one of our players is going to get key players going to get traded. Whether that's Patrick Beverly, I don't know, man.
Yeah, Trez is out of contract, so he might sign. He might not resign.
Yeah, I mean, Trez. I feel for Trez because he had a great season, and then he joined super late and just never looked like he got up to, whether it was fitness or just. But it's like he kind of ended. I feel like he's been devalued a little bit because of the postseason, but he's a strange player because he's not a big, and he's up against, I think he's 6'8" maybe, and he's he can't guard. Yeah, he can't guard Jokic. I would have hated to see what AD did to him, but yeah, so he's an interesting player because he's a great. He's been a great commodity for us. He was almost like an afterthought in the CP3 trade, but he's challenging. But I hope we keep him. I hope we keep him for sure. But yeah, apprehension is the main feeling.
That's the key word for this summer. I say when it's
well, yeah,
almost November. For the off season. We our last episode that was released, it wasn't the last episode we recorded, but we did a special for our 100th episode called Love Basketball, and we called back all of the guests that had been on the show and got them to put a little bit of content out about why they love basketball. And as much as I would have loved to just take what you said earlier and just clip it out and just be like, yeah, that's it, fine. I'm going to give you an opportunity to think about and then also let us know what it is that makes you love the sport of basketball.
I love basketball for so many reasons. I think first and foremost, just from the aspect of watching the game of basketball, it's watching guys do things that I know I never could, and that never gets old. And just the level of ability and athleticism and intelligence that is on display in the NBA and just in basketball in general is something that I love. I love the drama that comes with the sport of basketball. I can't downplay that enough. I love the characters on and off the floor and in the ESPNs and the athletics and all these places. But I think just most of all, I just love how basketball just gives so many people an opportunity to really express who they are. Like, it's so crazy to see someone play and see their personality expressed. Like, and obviously I don't know none of these people, but just seeing, like, imagining what type of person he is just from how he plays. And I think that's just so powerful. Like, what a way to be able to express like who you are, what you're about on the court and off it. So I could go on, but there are some of the reasons that I love basketball.
Nice. I like that a lot. All right. So that's it, man. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk to you. We've loved your work.
Thank you.
Love what you're doing, and we'll continue to support you and follow your career from here on out.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity. I always love to talk basketball, and I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, really appreciate that. So that was episode 102 of the Green Brown Basketball Podcast. Remember to like, share, subscribe, review, all the good stuff that you like to do for a pod. Helps us get the word out there. So from Nick Brewer, from Thomas Arnold,
good night,
and from me, David Sago, we're out of here.